What is up, everybody? What is up? Hope everybody is doing well. Thank you so much for the subs, the likes, all that. So we're going to jump into it. Make sure that you hit that like button for this video as well, and for all other videos. And make sure you go back through the catalog of my videos. You know, guys have been asking me questions and about this and about that and about how to different things I've already done videos about. And not that I'm complaining about that, but just go through the, some people have been binge watching, so I would suggest if you like one or two videos that I've done, go back and see if you like the rest of them. So, particularly up until the point, where I stopped really so much talking about education, but watch those too. Okay, so here we go. So a few weeks ago, Miss Anita put up a video about men stop letting women disrespect you. Coincidentally, speaking of Miss Anita from Better Love Movement, we decided we're gonna, try to collaborate at least once a month in a live, because she has so many male followers who want to get a male's perspective, males who want to get a female's perspective, and I have a lot of females who follow me because they want a male's perspective. So we're going to collaborate. That way we can kind of cross and have a conversation in which everybody can come together, have conversations, and all that. So I think it's I think it's a good idea. I think it's something that we can really do and really make some moves and really make some differences in people's lives. She's about trying to get people married. I'm trying to get about making sure the men level up and answering questions and all that. So we're gonna make this thing do what it do. So shout out to Miss Anita from Better Love Movement. All right, so what else we got going on? Okay, here's what else we got going on. We're going to talk about the video that she did about stop letting men stop letting the women disrespect you. And coincidentally, another point is that there's a guy who I quoted or cited before, Dr. Orion Teraman from Psych Hacks. Pretty good stuff he's been putting out. His channel's blowing up. And so he did a video just recently about leadership, something I talked about before as well. So I want to talk about men who've been raised in in feminine homes, raised in matriarchies, raised in what Dr. T. Hassan Johnson calls the Thegynarchy or Thegynarchy. And what all that means is, right, so the matriarchy, it means like the mother rules. The mother rules. Conversely, converse that with the patriarchy, where it means the father rules. And so, but the Thegynarchy, as labeled, is when women are in charge. That could be your sister. Talking to the men right now. That could be your sister. That could be your aunties. That could be your little cousins. Even if your sister's younger than you, right? There is some type of inherent dynamic where just the women are just not in charge. The men are not in charge and the women are in charge. And it's understood. It's reinforced. There's shame involved. All that different type of dynamic goes on. That's different from the matriarchy, in which the mother or the grandmother is kind of calling the shots in the family dynamic. Now, I've made it very, very clear that even though I came from from a female-headed home, no father in the home, that I had strong uncles and people at the church that I looked up to and said, and that wasn't going on. And so I can remember the first time I really internalized, even though I didn't have the language for it, what was going on in some people's homes. And that was when I watched the movie Soul Food. And I saw that the men were like just kind of being led around by their wives. The mother, the grandmother, had fallen sick, and I believe she died. It's been a while since I've seen the movie, but I'm pretty sure she died. And the leadership, the headship, just kind of naturally fell to the ladies. I don't remember if they had a brother. I know they had a cousin who they called when they needed somebody, but I don't know if they had a brother. It's been a while since I saw the movie. So anyway, so I saw friends like that growing up. I'm like, man, go to my friend's house and stuff, and their grandmother's there. The mother lives with the grandmother, and grandmother's calling the shots and stuff. So I saw it, but that just wasn't my dynamic. So my mother, when she went around, the other males in the life, she was looking for that masculine presence, I believe, and so she didn't have that. She didn't have that. So, but what does that do to the boys? Let's stick to the boys, right? What does that do to the boys when they grow up to be men? So the reason that Miss Anita did this, right, did that video about men, and she wanted me to do this video, in case I didn't say that. So I'm doing this in response and at her request. Because, so what does that do when you grow up in that type of environment? Well, we know statistically about the outcomes of prison outcomes, mental health outcomes, anxiety, depression, all these different factors when there is a female-headed household. And there is evidence. I try to be very, very fair and balanced. There is evidence that the more stable a woman is, the more stable she is. If she's not suffering some way from particularly mental illness, she's very confident and cool and all that, then she can raise good, upstanding boys. I totally admit that, right? Totally admit that. So, first thing to the ladies out there, make sure that you guys have it together. If you don't, do the best you can to get it together, right? So you can raise good boys and effective men. But, that still doesn't alleviate the stats about, single female headed households. Okay. So, yeah, and, don't come in the comment section saying that the men need to step up. I address that ad nauseum, right? It goes without saying that men need to be a part of their boys' lives. But when they're not, and then they grow up to be men, and they get disrespected, this is because they have grown up in environments where disrespect has been the norm. Think about some of the ways that ladies talk to their family members, right? You ain't nothing, you're stupid, you're this, you're that, right? You're no good, you're just like your daddy, call them little bees, little hoes. I've seen ladies calling their little children hoes, boys and girls, right? Not making any type of differentiation between them, right? So that needs to be worked out. And then listen, if you're a man and you've grown up in that type of environment, if you're a man and you've grown up in that type of environment, I would highly suggest, and I'm talking about you're a grown man now, I would highly suggest that this resonates with you and what Miss Anita resonates with you, and that you feel yourself being disrespected by your family members, your grandmother, your mother, your aunt, your little sister. If all these people are talking crazy to you and they expect things from you and of you, right? You're expected to do all the type of boyfriend, husband type of stuff, right? Take my car to get this, do this, give me some money for that, pay this bill, emotional labor, right? Listen to me rant. All this type of boyfriend type of responsibilities. I would suggest that you do the best you can to, number one, break free from that type of dynamic, assert yourself as much as possible, and then get some type of help or therapy in order to really overcome that. And that therapy could just be talking to your boys, reading some books, listening to really positive male-centered podcasts, books, audiobooks, right? You really got to do the work to get through and get over and get by that type of emotional, psychological damage that has been done to you, because it's not okay for anyone to disrespect you. It's not okay for your family members to disrespect you. You're trying to make moves, you're trying to be somebody, you're trying to make your way in this world, and you may be respected on your job, you may be very competent on your job, but if you got to go home or you got to go to a family function and you're treated like the quote-unquote redhead stepchild, then this is an issue. And you are going to have issues, as rightly Miss Anita said, that you're going to have issues within any type of relationship. Because if you try to get in a relationship and you're having a good time with your woman, and your mother, grandmother, somebody else calls you up with something that could be, solvable, and it's seemed as if it is an emergency, then it seems as if it is an emergency, then and you leave, that's going to be looked at very unfavorably, to say the least, by your potential mate. She's not going to want to deal with that. She's not going to deal with a mama's boy. She's not going to want to deal with somebody who's always running after a mama's coattail, can't ever stand up for himself, can't ever tell her no, tell your sisters no, tell your cousins no, right? Just let him talk to any old kind of way, borrowing money, never paying it back, and all kind of other foolishness. Ain't nobody going to want to deal with that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that, right? They want a man. The woman in your life wants a man. So you got to break free mentally and even sometimes physically. You might have to move to another town. If you live right down the street, you might have to move to another town. Oh, well, look, Big Al, listen, I know that they need me. I'm the only man around. And this, listen, then they got to respect you. And and part of that respect comes with your time, your energy, your money, and your your money, your time, your attention. Right? That's what it all comes. Coach Greg Adams, shout out to him, talked about protecting your meat. But your meat is not only for the potential love interest in your life, for women in your life, but for the familial relationships as well. Right? You still got money, energy, attention, and time that you have to protect. And just because somebody comes calling all the time doesn't mean you have to be at their beck and call. Don't mean you have to answer. Or listen, I'll get to it when I get to it. Right? There's a saying I used to say all the time, right? And it was very popular one time, right? Failure to plan on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part. And just because they're family, and just because they try to guilt you, I birthed you, I fed you, I did this, who paid for this, and who did this. Listen, I appreciate it, but it's time for me to be a man. It's time for me to be a man. That's to the full-grown adults right there, right? So you really got to work on that. You might have to, hire a life coach or therapy, or do what you got to do in order to really kind of mentally break free from those types of manipulation tactics that would try to keep you under their thumb and under their control. Under their thumb and under their control. I got my GPS on. All right, so what else do I got here? All right, so let's talk to the ladies right now for a minute here. I mean, we may come back to the men depending on where my mind goes here. So to the ladies, right, and you got to recognize that you're trying to raise a man. You're not trying to raise a puppy. You're not trying to raise a, somebody who's going to be at your beck and call. You're not trying to raise a slave. You're not trying to keep... Right, this should be your goal. So if your goal was we got to keep these men under control, keep these men doing what we want them to do when we want them to do it, if that is your frame of thinking, then I challenge your frame of thinking and say that you are a manipulator. Whether you know it or not, you are a manipulator who's trying to control the outcomes of other people. You want somebody who's going to be in your life, who's going to be at your beck and call, who's going to do what you say do, when you say do it, and at the specifications of that meet yours that you require. So you are part of the problem. And when you see all these weak men out here that everybody's complaining about in my comment section, you have to ask yourself, are you part of that problem? Are you a part of that problem that is rearing these weak boys out here? I played it before, and I'll play it again if I didn't delete it. Kevin Samuels, when he was having a conversation with these women, with a woman asking him who raised these weak boys. I might have deleted it. So anyway, if I play it. But anyway, Kevin Samuels talked about it, right? Who raised these very weak men? When you walk into the store and somebody gets your number, you go out on a date, and he's not assertive, he's not dominant, he's not showing any type of leadership qualities. If he's not doing all that type of stuff, which is why I brought up the psychologist there, Ryan Terraman. If he's not doing any of those type of things, you have to ask yourself, why isn't he doing it? And if you want a different type of man, if you want a different type of man to date, then you need to help be part of the process and part of the solution, and that's helping to make sure that these men get raised. Now, yeah, it's going to take a little bit of time. And that's probably what nobody wants to do. Listen, I want a man today. What is somebody, 10 years from now got to do with me? Well, listen, so we got to stop this problem at some point. And, we got to stop the bleeding at some point. So we got to stop it. So the other part that I want to be very, very clear about is that, you know, these men have been raised by you, and if you hold and ask yourself, right, how did my parents talk to the men in my life? Ask yourself that. How did the parents talk to the men in my life? Not to us and not to us kids, but how do they talk to the boys? How did my mother talk to her boys? How did my aunties talk to her nephews? Talk to her own sons, which would be your cousins. How did they talk to them? You got God kids. How did they talk to them in church? How were they talked to? How were they dealt with? How were they given authority? Were they given a chance to make a decision? Right? I've talked to some really good mothers out there who try to make sure that their kids, that their sons, that their boys, right, they're single mothers or they were divorced. I know a couple of them who talked to their sons and gave them authority, right? Here, you're gonna order the food for us at the restaurant. You're gonna, you know, when we take the car to go the oil change, you're gonna go out there and you're gonna talk to the servants, service people. You're gonna, you know, here's the card, you're gonna pay the bill. Right? Getting them used to at 12, 13, 14 years old about how to take command, how to take leadership, and how to do things, right? You're going to sit on the phone and you're going to talk to customer service and you're going to figure this thing out, right? Those are little steps that you can do as a woman to help to foster a sense of independence, self-reliance, masculinity into your son. You take it off of your plate. If you're a single mother, I'm talking about, take it off of your plate, even if you are married, right? And your husband's out of town and maybe he's, you know, at work or something, and, you know, still give your son some authority, you know, little stuff, right? Start off slow, right? Have him go to a store and pay the bill, right? Here's how you do it, right? Here's how we count the money, count the change. Here's how we add things up, right? Do that for your son. He's got to pay bills one day. You want him to know what he's doing, don't you? You don't want him getting taken advantage, do you? My grandfather used to tell me that, right? Man, you know, they don't do that anymore. But, you know, go to the store and stand there right in front of them, count the change, right? Make sure you know what you're talking about, right? My grandfather obviously came from a different generation where them folks, you know, trying to cheat them all the time. You know, they don't think that, you know, black folks know how to add, whatever. So you got to be very mindful of this type of thing. You got to instill this type of thing within your son. So you got to have these types of things, right? And you got to do those types of things. You got to have them and do them. So, yeah, so to the men who are raised in this type of environment, and the last point that I definitely want to echo, because this is something that all men go through, right? I talked before about the elephants, and it takes strong masculinity to raise elephants. Well, let me somebody who didn't watch it, I think I deleted it, but there was a study, well, not a study, but there was a situation that was going on in Africa, and they were I'm pretty sure that they were trying to save the elephants from being poached by those bastard poachers, and I'm a big animal lover. So in order to save them, hold on, I gotta figure out where I'm going here. In order to save the elephants, they transported them to a different park, and the bull elephants, the male elephants, were too big for the transport, which were being transported in the helicopters. So they transported the females, and then they transported the younger children, which would be the males and females. So then eventually the males start going into musk, right? Teenage years, right? Testosterone starts kicking in, and they start running amok and start acting a fool. No male presence. I told the story before. No male presence. So then they had to go get the males. The young males were running around there killing rhinos, fighting with each other, bullying the parents, bullying the other juveniles, other females. Became a roving band of monsters. So in order to stop them, they had to go get the males. So they had to retrofit the helicopter to make sure they could carry them. Went and got the males. 6 males. Went in there and straightened them all out. I don't know how many juveniles they were, but Article said there were 6 males that straightened them all out within hours. Within hours. So, this is my exit. My phone is blocking my view of my console here. So yeah, so this is something we need, right? So you got to have them around people. So eventually, I told the story to talk about, eventually teenagers are going to come into must. Human teenagers. They're going to come into a place where their testosterone starts to kick in, and they're going to start to smell themselves, feel themselves, as the old folks used to say. You start to smell yourself, right? And so I remember a friend of mine, right? We were coaching together. No, I was coaching his kids, right? And you know, he had just come back from the gym. He's drinking a shake, you know. So we were talking. He's like, yeah, you know. He's like, yeah, I'm lifting these weights, man, because he used to tell his kids, yeah, his kids was asking him, you know, why are you lifting these weights, Dad? He's like, I'm lifting them for you, right? Because one day I'm gonna have to straighten you out. So that's the way the men think, right? So one day it's gonna come that you're going to show your son who's boss as a man. And just like the elephants, right? If they're going to challenge, they're going to challenge. It's part of life. It's part of life. So you got to be ready for that. So the ladies right there, so they try to manipulate you. They try to manipulate men, because that's generally the way that women try to, you know, maintain control or dominance over any man. They can't beat you physically most of the time, right? They can't beat you physically, so they try to do these shaming tactics and manipulation. That's why sign language is so prominent. That's why men have to recognize when it's being done. Sign language being shame, insults, guilt, and the need to be right, right? So these are different tactics that a lot of times ladies use, rather than resorting to physical violence, because they can't really beat you most of the time. I'm not advocating for using shame language. I'm not advocating for using violence, men towards women or women towards men. People are learn to use the words, speak plainly and clearly, and get things off of their chest so things don't bubble up and boil over. So don't get in my comment section saying craziness. All right. So the ladies out there, right? So when a guy starts to develop, smell himself, you're going. And so the tactic that is used is to try to keep them under your thumb and try to keep them controlled. And that is not healthy, right? That is not healthy. It's not healthy. So you have to figure out a better way to make sure that you can control this boy. And it's not by tearing down his ego and his confidence and telling him whatever's whatever. It's not by calling the police on him. I can't tell you how many times, you know, that teenagers had the police called on them by their own parents. And I would get there, or I would, you know, hear the call. You know, when I was in the communications center, I would get on the phone like, listen, we're not sending the cops for this, right? Is there any violence or whatever, right? I'm not sending the cops for this, right? And I would read the comment section like, why are the police going here? Because the kid don't want to go to school. Listen, it's not a police call. And I would get on the phone, talk to the kid, whatever, you know. So we need that kind of stuff, and we need that kind of stuff, right? So that was showing initiative and leadership. And I didn't want the police, and a young black kids home. I didn't. I didn't. So I would. That was my contribution. Something I could do, right? So, and of course, I would recommend that they go to family counseling, therapy, whatever. You know, and sometimes there's free services about that kind of stuff, because a lot of times these women can't control these big dudes, right? You're a 5'4" woman, and your son is now, you know, at 14 years old, he's 6 feet. And now he recognizes it. He knows it. Right? He's looking down on his mother. He's looking down on you. He knows it. Same thing with the elephants. They know it. I'm bigger than this woman. I'm bigger than this big cow. Literally, right? That's what elephants are called, cows. Female elephants are called cows. So I'm bigger than this cow, right? I'm bigger than her. I'm bigger. Or I'm getting bigger. Even if I'm not there yet, I'm getting stronger every day. I took these rhinos out, I'll take you out, old woman. That's what they think. That's what they think. So we got to figure out better strategies to help to control these these young boys, and that's where coaches come in at. That's where taking them to camps. That's where if you got a strong pastor who believes in masculinity, karate lessons, jujitsu lessons, because those people in that they teach discipline, right? Jujitsu, karate, martial arts, boxing, they all teach discipline, right? We don't, and they teach an aspect of protection, right? Any good sensei, and that's why everybody looks at the Karate Kid, right? Because there was a good sensei who only taught about protection, right? Only taught the use of violence in the service of protection of yourself and the protection of others. But then you had the other school who was just about violence for the sake of violence, right? And violence is a form of dominance and domination. So a child needs to be taught that and needs to understand that. So so that's what it is. So that's my contribution to this conversation about about boys raised in matriarchy. I got to cut this short because I got someplace to be. There's more I could say, but the boys have to be who are raised in matriarchal settings. It's not over. It's not inherently bad, but there needs to be a different touch. There needs to be a different touch when you're dealing with these boys, right? Because of their social cycle feelings, right? And I was raised that way, and I had a lot. I still, even though I had good, strong people to try to point me in the right direction, I still grew up with a sense of low self-esteem. Right?
She wasn't caring about herself at that moment. Being a man, I needed a father. I needed a male influence in my life, and these were the males. The other males who could have been a more positive influence on me were too scared to come where I was, or they didn't have the money, or they didn't have the heart, or whatever.
Right? So esteem issues, mental health issues, feelings of accomplishment, right? That's why boys need rites of passage, right? And that's why, unfortunately, prison has become rites of passage for many young men, right? Because if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere, right? But what do you got to do to get there, right? So this is all stuff that is. Come on, dude. So this is all stuff that is talked about. Come on, lady. Why do you park like that? Why do you do that? Why do people do that? All right, so I got to cut this short. So, but mental health and all this kind of stuff, right? You really have to watch it. You really have to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. And you really have to do the best you can in order to make sure that these boys are raised right. Protection is not something protection is something that should come inherently, but they have to know their own strength, their own power, and football and violent sports will help teach that. I'm not saying it's always that way. I definitely advocate for people who want to be more artsy to do that type of thing, to be artsy, right? If you like arts and all that kind of stuff, there's nothing wrong with that. Whatever it is, but if they start to challenge you and they're that type of kid, right? Some kids aren't that type of kid. Not all boys are going to go through this 100%. You might have the more artsy, more less dominant type of kid just naturally, right? Even a kid who's raised up in a home by a father may still be that way. So let the kid be themselves. But to the kids who are more rambunctious, who are having a hard time in school, who are have a hard time paying attention, want to be outside running, and they're starting to smell themselves, they need a good, healthy outlet in which people will tell them how to manage their anger, how to manage their frustration, how to manage their rage, how to manage their feelings of aggression, and therefore they will become a steward of their own body, because they will understand when and when not to use violence. So I hope I said something along those lines. To the ladies out there, continue to do what you got to do. I hear you. As a product of a single mother, I hear you. And to the men out there, step up, obviously. And to the women out there who are looking for help, there's help around you. Men at your church, men at coaches, et cetera, et cetera. There's men out there who are trying to do this type of content. Let them watch it, right? Therapy and all that. Well, you got to get a male therapist. That's a whole other thing I'll probably do another episode about. I got to go. Much love and peace.